To Kazakhstan, President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev has dismissed 2 more top security officials following the worst unrest in 3 decades in the Central Asian country. Authorities said the situation has stabilized, with forces from the Moscow-led Collective Security Treaty Organization fully deployed. The CSTO is an alliance of former Soviet states. Russia's state news agency Tass said nearly 6,000 people, including foreigners, were arrested in last week's violent protests. Reports said at least 164 people were killed during the unrest, which mostly took place in the country's biggest city, Almaty. Demonstrations began January 5th against a fuel price rise, but this soon snowballed into a wider protest against the government, even despite the cabinet's resignation. And this prompted President Tokayev to request the assistance of the CSTO. The calm has returned to Almaty since the weekend. Michael Voss has more on the aftermath.
The protests may be over, but there were mass prayers on the streets of Zana-Ozin over the weekend. This is the oil town in southern Kazakhstan where the initial protests against rising fuel prices began. There's an uneasy calm across the country, with a strong military presence in major cities, ensuring that order is restored after days of protests and violence. Families are now struggling to find food and other essentials, with long queues forming outside shops that have reopened, with people buying what they can find amid empty supermarket shelves. Others decided to leave the country, heading for the border crossing to Russia.
My family is in the center of events. My daughter is in Almaty. Everything is destroyed. Absolutely all buildings. It is as if it were a real war. You know, absolutely all shopping centers. Absolutely all restaurants, cafes, everything is destroyed.
It's scary what's happening in the south. Very scary. Initially, people supported when people came out peacefully. They treated it positively. But what started later, the looting and so on and so forth, this treats people very negatively, and no one supports it.
The full extent of the damage is starting to emerge, with burnt-out cars and government buildings, along with looted shops in the largest city, Almaty. Dozens were killed and many more injured in the violent clashes. The government says a further 5,000 people have been detained. Now, questions remain as to why the peaceful demonstrations degenerated into violence and looting, and who was behind it. President Tokayev blamed foreign-backed terrorists when he announced his shoot-to-kill without warning order on state television. But the arrest of the former Prime Minister and security chief, Kassym-Jomart on treason charges, has increased speculation that there was an internal power struggle between former President Nursultan Nazarbayev and his chosen successor, Tokayev. Russian troops continue to arrive in the country, though officials say their role is to protect strategic locations rather than crowd control. Michael Voss, CGTN.